Hi there. I recently said that I was going to show you how I'm laying out this new altered book that I have started to prepare. I have glued a few pages together all throughout. I've added some pockets, and I've even started to add a little bit of decoration. But I don't know about you, but it's been a weird week, and I just feel a little too anxious to actually commit to gluing things down. And if you're watching this and it's not November 2020, trust me, it's a weird week. So instead, I am going to flip through an altered book that I made last year and tell you about some of the processes that I used. Before I even start, though, I want to say that I use a lot of old paper and books and whatnot. If you don't have access to these kinds of old papers, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't um, stay with me here because you can use whatever you've got. And I actually have a video on YouTube that gives you ideas for finding lots of fantastic images all around you, very cheap, often free. So stick with me, maybe get some ideas, use what you got, and improvise. That's the name of the game. But you knew that already. This is from an old book. I often alter the covers, but this one is called The Cathedral Psalter with Chants. And it had these embossed celestial images, so I didn't want to cover any of that up. I added some sari silk to tie. Okay. Here I've talked about this a lot. I don't want page. I want one layout that holds together as a single thing. So I took an old letter here. This is from 1902. You could use any text. And I rough tore it and then just glued it down across both sides. I added these flowers. And again, these aren't particularly old. They came from gardening books and a coffee table book of birds. But I want to show you something about the layout. I looked at a gazillion different images before I chose these guys. And you don't want to get too hung up or too fussy, but what made me decide on this ultimately was several things. He is an upright kind of a bird, this green woodpecker. And so they have a parallel stance here. La, la. The green in his back picks up the green here in this leaf, sort of an olive. So that, again, brings the eye from this side of the page to this side. There is red in the tulip and red in the head of the woodpecker. And this is a frontispiece from another book that I've added. And it was from 1898, and it was presented for good conduct at Sunday school. And I really love this ornate printing style. And again, you've got the gold here, the gold, red, and red. So even though you have these disparate whimsical elements, they actually hold together pretty well. This is an old letter, a legal document from 1871. These guys are not that old. She is. She's from 1882. And again, I picked colors that really picked each other up. The gold here, the gold in her, and that helps it hold together. Let me talk about something else on this page. About a third of the time that is spent on an altered book will be mending the binding, because you just don't know if you've got an old book. By the time you've glued the pages together and added pockets and added glue and added paint and all these liquid elements, a lot of times you will be well into a book and the binding will give. And that means that you can either weep which is an option, or you can look for resourceful ways to mend the binding. In this case, I took a tea bag, and I like them because they're strangely strong, almost like a linen, but it still let the details show through. It held the binding back together and added a little bit of interest to the page. This page also gave me some grief on the binding. In this case, I added some washi tape. It probably would have been a better layout without something going through the middle, but it was either that or chuck the book after I had done several layouts. So be resourceful. She's from an old ad from the 20s, on top of another ad from the teens. And I was able to find this. This is actually like from the 50s, so they weren't using as much color. And it was just from an old gardening catalog. But I love the way that they're very pretty, but not too shishy because of the grayscale. This is done on another document. It's kind of fragile. And this is just a print of some children dressed as Pierrot and Pierrettes and a flower. Not much to say here. This page uses a big old hunk of a page from, this is just a book of wildflowers that I got at a flea market for about £1. So, less than a couple of bucks. And nothing intrinsically valuable, just a lot going on here. So keep your eye out for old plant books and whatnot. I wanted to soften it a little bit, so I used some soft pastel and colored all around the edges and then smudged. This is a carte de visite from a woman who is very languid. And here I glued down all the sides except one. And that made it into a pocket. Inside of the pocket, I put this is a hand-embroidered postcard. This was a thing in around the 1915s, around the time of the First World War. I suspect it was a way for women to make money while their menfolk were on the front line. Let's look at some more pockets. This is some Tim Holtz paper. It's transparent, so that went down. You see what's underneath. She's just from a coffee table book of art. Over here, I added pockets. This is from a book of butterflies. Way back in the day, I got a book, again, at a thrift store for a couple of bucks of butterflies. And here I just took a page and rough cut it and glued it down asymmetrically. Inside, I added a postcard. This is Gloucester Cathedral. I actually like the way that looks in the back, so I didn't want to glue it down. I wanted to be able to enjoy both sides. I altered it a little bit by adding another butterfly. So we have this butterfly, this one, these guys, and this. But I picked out kind of orangey colors that also pick up this lady's costume. So even though there's a lot going on in this page, they're all drawn together by that color and that theme. This is a different kind of a pocket I had from a magazine of a lot of oversized butterfly wings. But again, I did get lucky, but it was just a magazine in a thrift store. So I took this wing and I glued it on upside down, here and here. And that left a pocket where I could add This is a little card. So here I added an old ad from a book, an improving book. I think it was from around 1905. And in the back were ads and whatnot. And this is an ad for a book for women, written by a woman. A boon to maidens, wives, and mothers. I added her. She's from some fashion prints from 1855. And I don't know, I chose her because she is pretty, but I also like the look, the side eye that she's giving to this whole idea of maiden, wives, and mothers. She's probably all of those things, and she just is not amused. Over here is a version of a pocket. It was at one time in the 1920s, a photograph would have been in here to be given to someone. The photograph is long gone, but I glued down a little bit of the page here, and I made a pocket for this carte de visite. And then instead of adding ribbon, I put a little bit of gauze for some shabby chicness, as one does. This is an old French receipt, 1832. And she is from a fashion magazine called La Mode Illustrée. And yes, I do sell these, but if that's not in your budget, please stay tuned because I will be doing some free downloads of ladies from La Mode Illustrée via my newsletter in a couple of weeks. And you can print those up and use them. I gave her some wings. And again, you can see where I've used a little bit of washi tape to fix a binding that gave way on me. Here's another example of using something that's not old. This was, again, from, I think, just a magazine. A little bit of a detail from a fragment from an old legal document, 1871. She is older, and I liked this image because she actually has some flowers in her basket, a little flower on her hat, but she's quite quaint and doesn't seem to realize that there's this wild riot behind her. Now, all of these pages have a narrative and a story, and it's up to the viewer to say what it is. This could be her imagination or how she feels inside, but maybe she's just expressing it in her little ladylike ways. Or maybe she doesn't know it, but these flowers are following her. I don't know. You tell me. Finally, this is the last page. I didn't want it to be too matchy-matchy. So instead of covering the whole page with text, I just took a bit of text that was roughly the same height as this card. So they kind of mirror each other, but they're different. There was some natural foxing already here that picks up the faded messiness of this card, which again was given for good conduct at Sunday school. I don't know, that was a thing. Must have been a thing. And I really liked, again, she's not old. She came from a book of art prints. But I love the way that the black in the crows pick up the black of her costume. And in some ways, their demeanor. Let's see. One last thing to point out here is that when I want my pages and images to pop, I go around the whole thing using a charcoal pencil. And then I smudge. And you can see that what happens then is you get some shadow, it pulls it into the page, and just really makes everything pop. So there you go. And if you have any feedback or questions, please let me know in the comments. I would be very grateful indeed if you subscribe to my channel and if you subscribe to my newsletter, which is, there's a link to it here in the text. And like I said, we'll be doing some free downloads that you can get from there, and video tutorials, some journal prompts, and the odd pep talk. So until later, go make something.